What to talk about. Some week my mind just blanks out. So I went to my handy-dandy husband and thought maybe he could give me some ideas. And of course, he loves to joke. So he said, I think you should do a series on steamy Bible romances. And as soon as I heard it, I thought, yeah, Samson and Delilah. It doesn't get any more steamy than Samson and Delilah, right? You remember the old Hollywood movie with Victor Mature and Hedy Lamarr? Oh my God, was that steamy or what, huh? Of course, as far as the series goes, I thought, well, I need a series so I don't have to think of something new each week. Wouldn't go too far as a series because after Samson and Delilah, it's all downhill from there. I don't think anything could quite match their steamy, whatever it was they had. But it was the same old theme. That was the only trouble with it. The same old biblical theme, blame the woman for the downfall of the man. How many times have we heard that one, right? I mean, there was Adam and Eve and good old Jezebel and Delilah, Mary Magdalene. Everybody wanted to blame the woman. I don't think that's what God had in mind when God created us women. I know we get hormonal sometimes, and you might want to just keep your distance during those times. But I don't think that's what God had in mind. So let's look at the story and see if we can think of something more creative, a metaphysical meaning out of the story. First of all, Samson had another one of those miraculous births. All the great heroes in the Bible seemed to have a miraculous birth where her mother couldn't have children. And all of a sudden she was out walking one day and saw a man that looked like an angel and came home pregnant. He probably looked like Victor Mature. And her husband just said, okay. Yeah, right. We've heard that story too many times before. But it's a great story, and all that's saying when they give these miraculous birth stories, it's saying this was a special child. That's all it's saying. And so she dedicated him to God. And he was a Nazarite. And what that meant, it was kind of like John the Baptist. He couldn't drink, no alcohol, no touching dead bodies because that was unclean, no touching women when they were having their periods because that was unclean. Someday we'll do a whole message just on that. We'll skip over that one real quickly. No cutting of your hair because they thought your hair is where your strength was. And that's kind of interesting because there are some indigenous cultures in different parts of the world that believe the same thing, that your strength is in your hair. But whatever, there was a prophecy when he was born, and it was that he would be the downfall of the Philistines. You see, the Israelites at that time they were under domination of these Philistines, and they called them godless people. Basically, that meant they had a different belief system, but they were godless people, and there was a little white supremacy going on then too. It was a Jewish culture, and they thought they were in danger of extinction because, they were trying to wipe them out. Well, Samson grew up as the fourth judge of Israel. And as the leader, he was supposed to have this great spiritual discernment. But instead, he was a little bit arrogant and had a bad temper. You can see his ego had to evolve. Are you seeing where the story might be going with his ego needed to evolve a little bit? Now, he was devoted to God, but his faith was in his hair. Now, we women get that, right? His faith was in his hair. And he was very strong, and nobody could argue. He killed a lion one day with his bare hands. Can't you just see him? And if he was in a fight, he would win. He was that strong. Now, his first marriage was to a Philistine. And that was a real no-no. That was a mixed marriage back then. And, of course, they considered these people godless and not of spirit. So it's like he had joined with someone that you could say in this day and age that was very materialistic, that was not of the spiritual bent that he was, that saw the world as source and substance. Well, his wife and family ended up being killed, partly because of the trickery of the Philistines and partly because of Samson's temper, a little bit of both. They knew the prophecy about Samson and they wanted to get rid of him, but he was too strong. So they brought out Jezebel, all right? Here comes, and this is where the steamy starts, okay, when Jezebel. And metaphysically, what is she in us? Well, she represents our sensuality, which means that we're all about the material world. Your senses, your 5 senses, we're all about what we can see, what we can hear, what we can feel, taste, touch, rather than about the spirit that we truly are. And she seduced him, so she's been blamed for his downfall. But let's back up a little bit. It was the Philistine men that hired her to seduce him. So let's all share the blame equally. And I feel a lot better if we all share the blame, right? Now, she tricked him into telling her where he got his strength from. Because he was very proud of it, but he didn't tell people where he got his strength from. So she tricked him, and when he fell asleep, she cut off his hair. And when he woke up here, he didn't have his hair anymore, and he was powerless. So he was captured by the Philistines, made a slave, tortured, and in the movie it was horrible. Remember in the movie they burned his eyes out with a poker? It was awful to watch Victor Mature being burned his eyes out. But metaphysically it's not so bad. Metaphysically, what does that mean? It means, okay, I'm no longer going to look at the world through the eyes of the senses. I'm no longer going to have faith in what I can see, touch, feel, hear. I'm going to see through the eyes of God. And I'm going to put my faith into what I can't see, the invisible spirit. So metaphysically, and we can quit falling into that victim consciousness, that we're victims of something out there. No, I place my trust in my spirit. Nothing out there can make me afraid. Now, good news, hair eventually grows back. Don't we know that, women? Aren't we happy when a bad hair day and we know our hair will grow back? And along with his hair growing back, his strength came back. And remember, at the end of the movie, the Philistines have him tied to these 2 pillars that were holding up this building. And now Samson has his strength back, so he pushes the pillars, breaks them apart, and the whole building falls down and kills all the Philistines, and Samson and Delilah with him. And the movie went the end. Now, in the book of Judges, it says Samson killed more people at his death than he had during his life. I'm not sure that's something to be proud of, but I'm not going to take that away from him. I'll give him credit. He did kill more people through his death than his life, but his destiny was finally fulfilled. He got rid of those Philistines. Now, what are those Philistines in us? Those thoughts that are of the materialistic world instead of spirit. Those thoughts that say this is important. Be afraid of this, like this, don't like that, judge this. Anything that relies on that in the outer. So those thoughts have to die in us. Now, in the Old Testament, everything was part of God's plan. If something good happened, it was God blessing them. If something bad happened, well, God's responsible for that too. So, according to them, God used his faults and weaknesses to God's advantage. We would say God can use any of us in spite of our faults and our weaknesses. God can use any of us. Metaphysically, every person, place, or thing in the story is an aspect of our consciousness. So we want to stop looking at the world through the 5 senses and connect in here and with our union with the divine. Now, Samson's name in Hebrew also meant sunny. And in the esoteric language, the sun and the moon had many meanings. In this case, the sun meant spiritual understanding. And the moon would be that which is hidden in the human will. My will, not thine, be done, is where Samson was. And he had evolved from that to God's will, seen through spirit's eyes. And he gained new strength from this new spiritual understanding. And it didn't come from his hair. And we too have to evolve into that deeper understanding through spirit, having faith in here, in the divine within us. Now, I found a Science of Mind magazine, and there was an article by Rev Ann Marie, and she said, without the realization that there's a power within us that is greater than any condition, and a source of infinite intelligence and wisdom awaiting our intention and alignment. We surrender to our circumstances and become the suffering victims of them. So without that spiritual understanding, we see ourselves as victims. But with the eyes turned out, which is a terrible symbology, but with looking through the single eye, well, I'm going to look at this differently. I'm going to look at this through the eyes of spirit. We're no longer victims, but victors. I'm in charge of this by how I see the world. And so Delilah again represented that world of the senses, which you see, taste, hear, feel. And Samson joined with her in that reliance on the senses rather than his union with God. But he finally had victory over those Philistines, those Philistine thoughts, those thoughts of the senses, thoughts of the world. And he had victory metaphysically over the forces foreign to spirit. And there were 5 great Philistine cities representing the 5 senses, living from that place. Now, I found a story about what happens when we think that out there is it, when we think that out there is real. But before I do it, is it a little chilly in here or not? Charlotte, would you mind turning that? That would be great. I don't know why, but when we have a certain temperature, it doesn't stop. And we've gotten it fixed, but it's still doing it. Anyway, so this is a great story about what happens when we trust the outer appearances, because we tend to go into lack, don't we? And so there was a newspaper article, this is a true story, a newspaper article, September 11th, 1911. But it is as true today as it was back then. The newspaper was from Indiana. Anybody from Indiana here? Okay, we relate to this then. Where this couple saw lack through their 5 senses. They got into fear, and they decided they could only afford 1 set of false teeth, and they shared them. I kid you not, the truth is stranger than fiction. Okay, here's the headline. The headline of this article: couple shared set of false teeth jointly. It is Sue passion alike for the subsistence of Mary Meyerly and her aged husband, now neither being able to eat solid foods since their 1 set of false teeth, which they used in common, was broken in a fight between the 2. Called before the mayor for an attack upon her helpmate. I don't know why they got called before the mayor. They must have created quite a ruckus. Mrs. Meyerly said that her spouse was using the teeth when it was her turn to use them at supper, and he refused to give them to her. She said she hit him over the head with a rolling pin and knocked the much-used molars from the old man's mouth, and the plate was broken. She was probably hormonal. So this story is how crazy we get when we let the world of the senses tell us there is lack, when we let the world of the senses say there's limitation. You can only afford 1 set of false teeth. When we look to the world, we believe in that. And like Samson, we have to change our focus from that to, oh, wait a minute, I'm in union with the divine. I can get a set of false teeth. I'm in union with the divine, my source and my substance. And the whole story of Samson is to learn to trust in the divine, not out there. And once Samson did that, he was able to kick ass, right? When we align ourselves with this power, we can accomplish miracles. With God, all things are possible, even 2 sets of teeth. Now, for those of you who are on Facebook with me, you know my body has often betrayed me. That's the whole lesson, is the senses can betray us. And I was sick a lot as a child, so I've grown up with this belief that I'm somehow weak. And I've decided now is the time to get rid of that old belief, because that sense world is betraying me from the truth of my reality, my union with God being my strength. So if you've seen my Facebook picture that I posted last night, I just bought a new bike. Yeah. Now, I I don't want you to be afraid if you read in the newspaper that a minister just ran into a herd of javelinas. Not me. That won't be me. Okay. Would you join me in affirming, I release the past programming. Together, I release the past programming. My strength is with my union with God. Together, my strength is with my union with God. Jesus said, I have food that you don't know about. The living waters within me. And one of the 12 powers of the Christ is strength. And that's where our reliance is. Not on the hour, not on our past, not on our stories, not on what our body may feel like some days, but our union with the divine. And the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary says, great strength can be attained by one who trusts in spirit. And especially now with all the chaos in the world, to have faith in that spirit, not what's going on in the world. Better to light one candle than to curse the darkness or to hit someone over the head with a rolling pin. Let us take that in our prayer. God, we close our eyes to shut out the outer world of appearances. It's nothing but a fearful dream anyway. We give it no energy. We give it no power. We place our sight within, to that spirit of the divine within us, to all the strength and beauty and light that we have within us. And together here today we support each other. I see it for you, you see it for me, and collectively together we become strong in the Christ presence. And once again we say thank you, Father, Mother, God. Thank you, God. And so it is, so it truly is. Amen.